In an age beyond living memory, a devil's shade cast upon our land, plunging it into the deepest darkness. And condemning us to grief without end. In vain we pray to the bleak heavens. The 12 gods descended from above. To lead the charge against the great evil. Invoking holy light, the gods smote the devil, and granted us our lost hope once more. We and our world were thus reborn. And so, as time flows endlessly on, our nightmare has faded into legend. Greetings, gamers! Welcome to my Let's Play Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War. An exciting game and entry to be sure. Of course, I'm going to begin a new game. There's nothing like Paragon mode in this game, unfortunately, and I do say unfortunately. I actually think it would be a wonderful thing. It would be a wonderful thing, and I mean a wonderful thing, if we had more game modes and options in Fire Emblem. It's one of the reasons why Thracia is so awesome to me. And Path of Radiance. I love Path of Radiance fixed mode. A lot of people don't have any clue what it does, and it is highly underrated. Seemingly, the craziest thing about that is that most people hate the randomness of level ups in Fire Emblem, and there is no randomness in fixed mode in Path of Radiance. Now, I'm going to be playing this new game. It is not going to be on clever mode, though I have beaten this game many times. I don't think it's on this set of files that I would have that save data. Clever mode is considered the hardest difficulty in this game. What's weird about it is, though, is that it actually makes some of the enemies easier to fight and some of the enemies harder to fight. So it's kind of a mixed bag. A lot of people like to make jokes and so on and so forth, banter about how bad the game mode is and that it wasn't properly balanced or anything of that nature. It is not really that big a deal. I'm just going to be moving on with a good, wholesome playthrough of FE4 in the year of our Lord Jesus Christ, 2024. Amazing. Playing this game over 2 decades after it came out, and not having the ability to play it when it first came out it's kind of a shocker. It's kind of a shocking amazement. I've been playing this game for years, and to be able to throw it up on the channel is going to be an awesome experience. Now, we're going to be going through the Jugdral chronology. Unfortunately, it goes way too fast for me to read vocally on the screen, so I'll just read some tidbits if I can, and move on with the story. So, let us begin. The Jugdral chronology. 001, the first year the Kingdom of Gran is born on the Jun River's west banks. Archbishop Gale is crowned the first ruler of the Lopter Empire 448 years later. The Edda massacre, over 10,000 victims in the Empire in 453. The Miracle of Dara in 632. The Holy War begins in 633. 747. Granvelle declares war on the eastern nation of Isaac. An age of crisis begins. At the heart of the continent of Jugdral lies Granvelle, a kingdom founded by Saint Haim of the 12 Crusaders. Supporting the royal family, the heirs of Haim are 6 noble houses, each also descended from a crusader of old. The six states, while still subservient to the royal family, each occupy vast swaths of Granville's land and maintain mighty militaries of their own. Owing to King Asmir's advanced age, the governance of Granville falls to his son, the highly respected Prince Kurth. Kurth has two trusted advisors in his rule, Lord Byron of House Chalphy and Lord Ring of House Jungby. Granville's Chancellor, Lord Reptor of Frege, has long objected to the threat to his influence posed by Kurth and his advisors, and has allied himself with the avaricious Lord Langbalt of House Dozel to form a faction opposed to Kurth's rule over Granville. The young Duke of House Veltomer, Lord Arvis, leads the royal guard, and in the king's care, and so has little time for the circus of politics. Only Father Claude of House Edda could foresee the oncoming storm. Into the midst of this tense situation comes dire news from Jugdral's east. Darna, a town in the Yi Desert, deep within, with deep ties to Granville, is now besieged by savage warriors from Isaac. Reports of a brutal massacre abound. The news is met by the people of Granville with furious cries for retribution, and before long the kingdom declares war on Isaac. Prince Kurth leads Granville's charge on his father's behalf, commanding the military might of the kingdom's 6 houses. At Kurth's side, as always, is none other than Lord Byron, a highly decorated hero of peerless valor in his own right. Granville has poured its entire military might into the Isaac campaign, and precious few soldiers remain behind with its neighbors. Augustria to the west. And Verdane to the south, bound in alliance with Granville. None dare to dream they could ever be threatened. It is not long at all, however, before the people's confidence is shattered. As if from nowhere, a vast horde from Verdane, led by Prince Gandalf, crosses the Grand Valley border and lays siege to Jungby Castle. In Lord Ring's absence, his daughter, Lady Ideen, is Jungby's only guardian. Lord Byron has entrusted the defense of Granville in his absence to his son, Sigurd, who remains at Chalphy Castle with a mere handful of soldiers. A friend of Ideen since childhood, Sigurd is horrified to hear of the Jungby siege, and even with so few soldiers is determined to protect Ideen and his fatherland from the savage Verdanite hordes. The year is 757 Granville calendar, and thus the threshold of fate is cast open. Nobody could have known then that this simple disturbance was but the first of countless calamities to come. Say that 3 times fast. Prologue: Birth of a Crusader. Jungby Castle, and it's green. I really wish you could mess with the settings before this game started, because the movements of the enemies in the cutscenes is so abysmally slow. Milady, the castle is completely surrounded. We failed you. We couldn't do a thing to save you from them.
It's all right, my dear. Every one of you did the best you could do. Please, you needn't worry about me. You must ensure that as many of you survive this as possible.
No, milady. We might not stand a chance, but every last one of us will give our lives to protect you, right to the very end.
Thank you, my dear. I'm so sorry.
Chalphy Castle, home base. Gandalf's army already has Jungby surrounded. Ideen is in grave danger. Noish, I'm going to help her. I'm leaving Chalphy in your hands. Hold, my lord. Surely you don't intend to go alone? Nearly all of our forces are already on the march to Isaac with Father. There's hardly anybody left to call upon. They may be simple savages, but Verdane's army is still huge. I can't risk your lives by forcing you to face them. Perish the thought, my lord. I was born a knight, and I will gladly risk dying a knight's death in your name. To allow our lord to die alone in battle would be an unspeakable disgrace. We shall be by your side every step of the way. Alec, I trust you are of the same mind? Yeah, of course. But there is more than just Jugby at stake. We've got to stop by the nearby villages first. Those thugs will try to beat us to them, and they'll loot, massacre, and burn them all down if they do. We've got to get there first and lend the locals a hand in locking the villages down and fortifying their defenses. Absolutely. We mustn't neglect our knightly duties to protect the people, especially not at a time like this. Good point, Alec. Actually, that was all Oife's idea. That kid's every bit the tactician they say he is. Give him a few years and he'll be a match for his old grandpa, Lord Caesar. Oife's still around the castle, huh? Oife, I know you're here. You can come out now.
My apologies for still being here, sire, but still, if you would allow it, I'd like to join you in battle. I can't just sit back while you risk your lives.
I don't know. You're still so young, and are you sure you're ready for this?
I'm already 14, sire. I may not be battle ready just yet, but there's still so much I can do to support you. Please, allow me to accompany you. I swear I won't let you down.
Fair enough, Oife. After all, you've spent 2 years training as my squire. Real battlefield experience would be fantastic for your training, but you're still definitely not up to actual combat duty for now. How about you ride with me as my advisor instead?
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sire. Thank you.
Lord, what of the defense of Chalphy itself in our absence? Leaving the castle unattended is risky. Should the enemy slip past us, an unguarded castle will fall easily and spell us a swift end.
Noise, I'd say there's only one man we can depend on for that.
Eh, Arden?
Hold a moment. Why me, Alec?
Sturdy as a brick wall, strong as an ox, slow as a turtle, face it, Arden. You were born for guard duty.
Pah, I'm strong and tough, I know, but you really don't need to call me slow.
He has a point, Arden. Would you? You're the most apt at guard duty.
Fine, I'll do it. But you have to bring me with you at least once. I don't want to be left out of the action.
Right, men. It's time to set out. Let's start by assisting the villages, and then it's onward to Jugby. Alright, Sigurd's phase. This is awesome. I love this game. Alright, animations are going to be on for the duration of this particular chapter, and they are going to be off pretty much for the rest of the game. There's going to be a few times where I'm going to turn them on, but it's going to be at significant and substantial points in the story and in the game when it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, it's going to be off. And I know this is going to be a little bit of a downer for people who like the animations. I love the animations personally. I fully understand. However, the problem is that this game would turn from being maybe a 50 to 70 part game to like a 140, 180 part game. I don't even know how long this game is going to be, honestly. I did a test run of this game not too long ago, just trying to catch my bearings and whatnot, record it and see what's up and whatnot. And my reaction to it was something along the lines of, man, I'm already like 12 parts in and I'm only in like chapter 2. This is nuts. This game is entirely different than any other Fire Emblem game you've ever played before, ever. It is probably what many would consider the black sheep of the Fire Emblem franchise, simply due to the fact that it is so vastly different than anything else. I mean, granted, Gaiden is probably more the black sheep, but with the remake of Echoes being such a good representation of Gaiden while also bringing it up to snuff, I would say that there is representation of that game that makes it not so much a black sheep anymore. The original, sure. But considering gameplay-wise, this game is just worlds different. Terrain window is going to be on, unit window, obviously. Text speed is going to be max, of course. Enemy speed max. Stereo, there's stereo mono and off. Obviously, we're going to have that on. Okay, so one funny and interesting setting I need to talk about real quick here. Most people who have a complaint about the length of the chapters in Genealogy do not understand that Genealogy has an autosave function that happens at the start of every single turn. And it's mind-numbing, right? It's mind-numbing. So I'm going to be turning autosave onto file 4. I'm never going to save over that physically, really. I'm just going to autosave every single turn with that. File 4 is going to become basically a save state. This game had save states before they were ever a concept. And that's kind of wildly, wildly cool. I highly recommend, if you're going to play this game, play it in sections where you play like each castle is basically a Fire Emblem chapter. That's how this game plays. Each and every castle on the map is a Fire Emblem chapter. This particular map only has 2 castles that we have to seize. However, that's still 2 chapters. So this chapter is basically 2, if you want to think about it that way. Auto cursor, fine to leave that on. I think the settings are okay for the time being. Another thing I'm going to take note of here is that I fully plan on only talking about 2 characters per episode. 2 characters that still need to be spoken of per episode. And what that entails is, because there is only so many characters in each generation of this game, because this game is generational, it's going to make it so that it's more spread out, and there's going to be less talking and more gameplay per episode. First and foremost, I'm going to be obviously talking about Sigurd, the knightlord of Chalphy, and the main protagonist and your lord character of the first generation. He is, in my humble opinion, the #1 best lord in the franchise. Best lord, number 1. Number 2 happens to be his son. In fact, I think the only reason why Leif in Thracia is a number 3 and not a number 2 is because Sigurd's son becomes a bettered Sigurd at some point, whereas Leif really doesn't become all that better than his beginning statistical self in the beginning of Thracia. Of course, stats, yes, he gets better and stuff like that, but he doesn't really get a busted promotion like Seliph does. However, we're talking about Sigurd here. Sigurd is an amazing unit. Sigurd is the best unit, in one of the best units in this entire game, let alone the fact that he is the best lord in the series. He is mounted. This is wonderful because being mounted in Fire Emblem 4 is pretty much a necessity. If you are not a mounted or cavalry unit, you are pretty much not good. Doesn't mean you're terrible. It just means that you're not like 10-star material. You're not #1 on the list. You're not top 3. You're not top 5, you know. So being a Knight Lord, that means he can use swords and lances, which is pretty great. His wonderful statistics: strength of 14, magic of 0. He doesn't really need the magic. Skill of 11, speed of 12, luck of 7, defense 9, resistance 3, HP of 35 with growth rates. These are including the Holy Blood bonuses. 110% HP, 50% strength, 5% magic, 50% skill, 30% speed, 40% luck, defense, and 5% resistance. He, if I can remember, yeah, there we go. He comes with the major Baldur Holy Blood. This game has a wonderfully interesting mechanic in that it has Holy Blood that messes with growth rates. This is only really relevant for Gen 2. For Gen 1, it's irrelevant. There's a lot of sites out there that will show you the difference between a unit's growths before and after the Holy Blood statistics are factored in. The issue with that is what's the point of that in Gen 1 when the Gen 1 units can never have their growth rates without Holy Blood factored in? So I would never read to you. I would never even bother with the so-called statistical growth rates of these units without Holy Blood. I mean, it's fascinating, of course. It's still fascinating to look it up and see it, but it's just not really useful information. So there's 12 Holy Bloods: Baldur for Seti, Naga, Nir, Nova, Hazul, Odo, Dane, Euler, Bragi, Tordo, and Vala. Some of these are not correct translations, and though I'm going to try my absolute hardest not to just dog on Project Naga, I do have to say that some of the things that Project Naga did in translation are not what I would call perfect iterations of the translation in this game. And the reason why that is because the game is it's just lacking in certain quality of life needs and improvements with translation. Thracia with Little Manster is amazing because it has everything you would want, I think, except for a few things. Like, for instance, calling him Lithus when he's obviously either Lithis, TH, not an F, or Rufus. And I personally believe that his name is probably Rufus, just like how everybody in genealogy fandom wants to call Lachesis. Her name is actually probably more like pronounced Rakesis, like Raquel. Most times in the Romanized English language translations of the Japanese language, a lot of people get the L's and R's wrong, and typically R's are what should be assumed. So all that nonsense going on. Sigurd comes with 2 authority stars. So authority stars are interesting in this game. 1 authority star does absolutely nothing. 2 stars gives you 10% hit and avoid for all of your units that are within 3 spaces of your commander. And then you get 10% to each of those stats for each and every authority star after that. I don't think you ever have more than 3 authority stars, so this is hardly that big of a factor. It's still useful, but it's hardly that big of a factor. Now, where it comes into play is when you talk about the bosses. So the bosses have authority stars. The authority stars determine the AI of the units under his command, the boss's command. This is very interesting. This is where Clever Mode comes in. Clever Mode makes it so that all of the units have a 5-star AI boss ranking. Like they're all under a 5-star authority level. Whereas in this instance, Gandalf is the boss currently, so all of these guys are only running on a 2 authority star AI. I love this. I really, really love this. So different levels create different intelligences and make for a different variation on play with the characters and the units and what the enemies will do. If a unit is 3 authority stars or under, he will attack your ranged units with range. This is the only thing that allows bow units in this game that are not mounted, by the way, because mounted bow units are great. But bow units that are not mounted to still be somewhat useful is that you can have them fight a horde of bow units and they'll all attack him instead of like your other units or whatever, what have you, stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. So Sigurd has 9 movement, 5,000 funds, an arena level of 1. We're going to get to that next chapter. His condition is healthy. He has a sword rank of star. This is basically S rank in this game. That means he can use the best sword for his particular holy blood, which is Balder. And he has a B rank for lances. His personal skill that he has right now is Pursuit. Allows the user to double attack if attack speed exceeds foes. So in this game, you must have Pursuit in order to double attack. A lot of people don't like this, and I find it to be egregious that people don't, because this is just one of the quirks and interesting mechanics of genealogy that makes genealogy cool, interesting, and has its own little facets to it. You can play around it, and it's very easy to play around, honestly. It's so disgustingly easy to play around. It's not worth complaining about. In this game, swords, lances, and axes have weight that is not at all mitigated by anything. so it is just a straight minus off of your speed. Swords are the best weapon in this game, period, bar none. Swords are the best. They're better than magic, they're better than lances, they're better than axes, they're better than bows. They are better than any weapon in the game. Swords are just the best thing to have. So, Sigurd being a knightlord, having swords, and primarily using swords, is good for him. Only 3 weight. This means that he still has 9 speed. He's going to double everything. In fact, I'm pretty sure that at 9 speed, he pretty much could double most things in this entire generation. Most things. Most units, particularly. Iron Lance has 12 weight. Base weight of lances is 12. There are some variations. There are lances that weigh less, and there are lances that weigh more. However, base weight is 12, just like base weight for swords is 3. You can see the disparity here. Sigurd has 0 speed. Now, he'll still double, because you just have to have more speed than the opponent. A perfect example of this is iron axes. Axes have a base weight of 18. This is insanity. It's actually insanity, right? I don't really know why they have so much weight. I guess it's just to make the enemies bad in the first parts of this game. This guy has a negative 11 speed, which means that all you have to do is have a negative 10 speed and you still double him with Pursuit, because this game does not require you to have 4 or more speed in order to double. It just requires you to have Pursuit. How I would balance this and change this, because I do see the argument, is I would make it so that you can double without Pursuit, but you have to have 5 or more speed. I would make it significantly more. I'd make it more than 4. I'd make it 5 to make the skill more important. 5 or more speed, you can double. But if you have Pursuit, all you have to do is have 1 speed more, and you can double. I think that would be the perfect and most logical way to balance out the wonderful skill of Pursuit. The only other unit I'm going to be talking about in this particular chapter, and well, this particular video, is Arden. Arden is an armor sword. Now, though armor knights are notoriously not great in Fire Emblem, I would say that Arden is decent. He can become fantastic in this particular gen if you are willing to go slow. If you're willing to go slow and if you're willing to train him. I am not willing to go slow. This is not going to be a speed run. This is not going to be an LTC, I promise you. That's just not my playstyle. But basically, this is going to be mounted the emblem. Now, Arden comes with 36 HP and a 90% HP growth, 13 strength and a 50% strength growth, 0 magic and a 5% magic growth, 5 skill and a 10% skill growth, 4 speed and a 20% speed growth, 3 luck and a 10% luck growth, 13 defense and a 50% defense growth, and 0 resistance and only a 5% resistance growth. Resistance is almost unnecessary in the first generation, almost. The last couple of chapters will throw a wrench in that, but it is almost unnecessary. So it's not that big a deal that most of your units only have like a 5% magic growth or resistance growth in this particular generation. It's going to be much bigger factor in Gen 2. And you'll have units that can combat it, so it's not really that big a deal. He has no blood to speak of, no holy blood to speak of, no major or minor, because that is something that's interesting, is that Sigurd has major, and you can tell because his little dot next to Baldur is not only there, but it's blinking. Minor will not have a blinking dot. He has obviously no authority stars. He has no lover, no talk to speak of, only 5 movement, 2,000 funds, 1 arena level, condition healthy, B rank swords, and he has Vantage. User will always strike first in a pinch. He has to be at half health or less to strike first. Now, before I move onward, because this episode's going to be over very shortly, I might as well talk about a few things before I let you go. Funds are not shared between your units. So, as you can see, he has 2,000 funds, Sigurd has 5,000, Noish and Alec have 2,000. Not only are funds not shared between your units, but items are not shared between your units. You cannot trade with units. You have to literally sell your items to a pawn shop and then buy those items with your other units. You sell it at half price and you buy it at full price. And it's basically determined, the price, the value is determined on how many uses you have left of the weapon. This is really cool. I love this. I think it's fantastic and a really good game design because it makes the weapons in your armory, in your arsenal, in your inventory more impactful and allows them to be more impactful. One thing that's so very interesting about this game is if you see under Iron Sword, you'll see a star and it says 0. This is incredible. Why is it incredible? Because each and every kill you get with a weapon in this game comes with a counter. And that counter goes there. Once you reach 50 kills with that particular weapon, you gain the critical skill with that weapon. Now, critical is not a skill that you automatically come with. It's like Pursuit. In fact, right here, you can see it. Critical. User can inflict critical hits, doubling attack power. It is not automatic in this game, just like doubling is not automatic. However, weapons can get critical. Once a weapon gets critical, what happens is your skill is factored into how much crit you have. So at 50 kills, his Iron Sword will have a 5% chance to crit. However, every kill after 50, all the way to 100, gives you 1 extra critical. You can get to 100, so your weapons can have 50 crit on them. That's before your skill is factored in. This is phenomenal. This is amazing. This is incredible. And why this is something that can happen in this game particularly, and it cannot happen in any other game in the series, is because the weapons in your inventory come at a cost. They have a value to them, and they cannot just be given away. Now, how in the world could you possibly have 50 kills on a weapon that only has 50 uses? Because in this game, when your weapons break, they don't disappear. Hallelujah! This is one of the things I love about Jugdral, is that your weapons don't disappear. Now, this game is vastly different from good old Thracia. Thracia, the only way you could repair your weapons was with the Hermern staff, but believe me, that's pretty much all you needed. And when I say it's all you needed, I mean it's all you needed. In this game, it's a little bit different. In this game, each and every time you visit a castle, in a chapter barring this one, or, well, actually, you can do it in the castles in this one too. Each time you visit a castle, and each time a chapter begins, and you're all inside the castle, you can repair your weapons at a cost. And the cost always is half of the amount of the weapon's usage. So, or is it whole? No, I think it might be whole. So it can become costly, but it's actually very useful because it makes things like brave weapons very powerful. Magic weapons, very powerful. And this is incredible. I am just such a huge fan of Genealogy and of the Jugdral games in general. There's just so much to do, so much to consider. Of course, I'm going to move good old Sigurd way out yonder. I'm actually going to be moving all of my units away because there are villages around the whole of the map. And these villages can be visited to give you gold, depending on how many of the houses are left. Each and every turn, a house can be burned down. And it takes 10 turns to burn down the entire village. If you visit a village before any of it has been burned down, you will gain 5,000 gold on that unit. Each and every turn that a house is burned down in the village, you lose 500 of that gold. So if you visit it after 2 turns of it being burned down, you're only getting 4,000 gold. Some villages, like this one, have an item in them that you can obtain, which is pretty good. There is not much healing on this particular map because it is the beginning of the game. You don't have anything like vulneraries in your unit's inventories, as is pretty clearly noted. There is nothing like vulneraries in this game, which does stink, you know. Would be nice to have stuff like that. But you can visit churches and wait on them, and if you wait on them, your following turn, You'll be healed your full amount of HP if I'm not mistaken, but it costs 5 gold per HP point that you are healed, which I think is a very interesting little tidbit. There's 2 churches on this map, if I'm not mistaken, just 2. And then there's 2 castles, particularly on this chapter. I'm gonna have to get to this castle, Castle Jungby, and then I'm gonna have to move on to good old Evans. However, with that being said, though not much gameplay has happened, it is time for me to call it a day. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like my content, please upvote and follow, or like and subscribe, depending on your platform. And while you're at it, have a great and glorious day gaming. Subscribe.